Welcome to Business Brains and the Bottom Line podcast. My name is Paul Delegro, your host, and my guest today is Richard Bliss. Welcome to the show, Richard.
Paul, it is a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, Richard, I'm excited. So you are a top LinkedIn trainer and you're social selling trainer and expert. And that's a subject that's near and dear to me because I'm in sales.
Right.
And but what I like to do is when we talk about a subject like this, it's kind of a vague subject. Let's start with a definition. Your definition. What is social selling, by the way?
That's a great. So we're going to speak from a sales perspective. Social selling is using the tools that are in place today to basically engage in the type of conversations and interaction that we normally would in person, but using the social tools to do that. And so to me, that's what social selling is. Some people see it as spamming or blasting. Right. No, that's what it is. Using the tools today to engage with your prospects and customers.
Got it. So that leads me to my next question is, you and I are of similar age. We won't say how much, but the way we sold 30 years ago, 40 years ago is gone, right? Yep. It's completely different today. So it leads me to my next question is the old traditional ways like cold calling and now even a semi-modern way of emailing. Does that stuff work anymore?
It brings up a great question. There's a book out there called To Sell is Human by Daniel Pink. Fantastic book because it really addresses this issue. And that is, in the olden days, the seller, the salesperson had the advantage. They had knowledge that the buyer did not have. Right. And so then they could control that interaction. Today, it is completely flipped. By the time we know that.
I agree with that 100%.
Which means then that the role of the salesperson has to change, is that if you continue to operate from this idea that you have scarce knowledge that you're going to somehow dole out or control, that's not going to happen. And so you have to realize that your partners, your customers, your vendor, everybody has so much information. You have to change your role. And that's really where social selling becomes such a critical component of that.
Yeah. It's actually, I heard a statistic recently that of all the buyers out there, they go to social platforms and research information probably 3 to 5 times before they'll even call a rep. So before they even call you, they kind of know what they're looking for. Like you said, there's so much information out there right now that it makes our job as salespeople a little tougher sometimes.
It does, makes it really tough because if you started your career in the late 1900s, as you just identified, right?
Yeah.
That sounds like covered wagons and floppy disks.
It does. It really.
But we're dealing with a generation of buyers who don't even remember the late 1900s. And some are starting to get to the point where they might not even have been born in the late 1900s. So we have to be careful of thinking that we can draw upon a lifetime of experience and somehow that will convey authority or respect amongst the buyers that we're working with today.
No, I completely agree. So, social selling. So what kind of and I don't expect you to open up the coffers today and have every industry secret out there. But, to a salesperson today that wants to start social selling, where do they start? What are some of the things they can do?
Another great question, because the first thing they're going to start is say, which platform should I start on, or should I be on all of them? Now, I deal with enterprise companies. A lot of my companies are multi-billion-dollar, multinational corporations. I'm talking to people all over the world. Yeah. They are not going to use Instagram and TikTok to sell their services.
Correct.
Right? So that means they should use a platform where their customers are. What's that famous quote? Why did you rob banks? Because that's where the money is.
Right.
Why should you be on LinkedIn? Because from a business standpoint, 100% of your customers, your partners, your vendors are on LinkedIn. And so Agreed. You can dabble in the other social media platforms, but when it comes to selling from a business to business standpoint, LinkedIn has 100% of your customers out there on the platform. And so that's where you start is, okay. Let's get on LinkedIn.
Got it. Yeah. So once you get on LinkedIn, there's again, I've taken some classes in this. I'm a little bit familiar, not as experienced as you, obviously, but you got to build your profile. You got to put out content. You got to connect with people. What's the proper way to do all this stuff? I mean, there's a lot to it.
There's a lot to it. So let's start with this. I had a conversation this morning with a team. I'm going to be in the Dallas area talking to them here in a couple of weeks. And let me read to you the opening lines of their about sections. Okay? I'm just going to read them off. I got them right here. Forward-thinking, technology-focused professional with 12 plus years of experience. Results-oriented, analytical professional. I have experience building and leading growing software organizations. Dedicated professional currently working in the IT industry. Senior technology executive with 20 plus years. Aggressive salesperson who regularly exceeds quota and expands target accounts. Okay, I just rattled off a bunch of first lines of your about section. What audience, does it sound like, Paul, is the intended audience for every one of those opening lines?
Almost like if you're looking for a job.
You're looking for a job.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it sounds like to me.
Here's the funny thing is when I got in front of this audience this morning, I told them those were not random about sections that I just went and pulled. Those were salespeople who were on the call that I went and pulled their first line of their about sections and said, do you really want to tell your prospects and customers that you regularly and aggressively exceed quota and expand your footprint within target accounts? How does that make a customer feel? So, Paul, that's where you start. Go look at your LinkedIn profile right now. It probably looks like a resume because you haven't updated it since your last job.
Yep.
And now ask yourself, do I want to be talking to do I want my prospects see me looking for a job, or should I shift it to start talking to them in an aspirational manner that introduces to them what I can bring to the relationship and solve their problems? That's the biggest and fundamental change that people can make.
Yeah. And that can be done pretty easily, correct? I mean, you don't.
Yes and no. And here's why it's hard. We're not used to talking about ourselves like that.
Yeah.
So I recommend that you sit down here's what I tell sales leaders, that every week they should pull up one of their employees, one of their sales members, and collectively pull up their LinkedIn profile and have everybody give safe, comfortable advice on how to make some changes. Yeah. Oh, that really that way and then every member gets to have that round table happen with them without it being. People are embarrassed. I'll tell you, I pull up their LinkedIn profile. They're embarrassed. They're like, oh, I haven't touched that in years. You don't have to tell me. I can see that.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I tell them. Yeah. So that's one way to start. That about section's really hard, but also make sure you've got a photo that's recent. I met with a woman today, lovely woman. She is 79 years old and very proud of it. Her LinkedIn profile puts her at about 55.
Yeah, I've seen 56. I've seen that many times.
And
both guys and gals, by the way. This isn't something that's.
Oh, no, it's men and women. And you can relate to this one. We had a client tell us the story that he went into a prospect to meet. And the prospect said, I'm sorry, but you're not who I was expecting.
Yeah.
He's like, no, this is who I am. He's like, no, I looked at your LinkedIn profile before you came, and the person I'm looking for has a full head of hair.
Oh, boy.
He had not updated it in quite some time. And so that photo is the one human connection we make to people. Make sure it is your face, well lit, your nose is in the middle, not some picture of the Sydney Opera House in the background. No, it's about you.
Yeah.
And then we've got that banner in the background. Use a visual aid to help your prospects, customers, employees visually see it, whether it's a geographical location. Maybe you're in the New York City area, the finance district. Whether it's something around your industry, a healthcare, or it's something that's personal. I have a client that she's very much into greyhound rescue. And there's a picture of greyhounds in her background image, because if you know her, you know that is something that she's passionate about, even though her work is something completely different.
Yeah, that makes a little personal touch, right?
Yes, a little personal touch.
Let people get to know you a little bit.
Yep, that's exactly it. And so those are the key things to think about when you're building that profile and how to participate. That's the profile itself. So those would be the key touch points.
Yeah. So the next topic I want to talk about is putting out content. Now, there's a lot of theories out there, Richard, on what type of content, when you should put it out, how often you should put it out. And there's a lot of algorithms running in the background on LinkedIn that analyze all this stuff. And this is confusing. So kind of dumb this down for us and address kind of those last few things I mentioned.
Well, we don't have to dumb it down, but we do have to say that we're having two different conversations when it comes to the algorithm and content. One conversation is what we learn on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. And that is more is better.
Right.
Video is better. Pump it out.
Yeah.
LinkedIn's like, no, that is not our platform. LinkedIn is looking for value that you can add that starts a conversation amongst your audience. That means the content you're putting out there should not be video, because nobody talks. Video does not start a conversation. Video people watch, click like, and move on. I mean, I don't sit in a movie theater and talk to the person next to me about the movie as I'm watching it. It's kind of the same thing on LinkedIn. I don't watch a video. Most people don't even watch videos on LinkedIn. I mean, we have our sound turned off by default, but text content, text only, that starts a conversation. Another conversation I had this morning with a client, they had written up this beautiful thing about transformation and change. But the kicker, the punchline, was at the bottom. That's how we all learn to write a 5-paragraph essay, right? Make your statement, 3 paragraphs, and your summary. On LinkedIn, your content should flip that. Your summary should be at the top. It should hit your people right in the face with
you want to grab their attention immediately, correct?
Their attention, but you want to grab their desire to engage in the conversation. Right. So people are like, oh, I'll grab their attention. I'll put up a pretty picture. That does not cause people. I mean, Paul, you've seen it. How many times you've seen 4 diverse individuals sitting around a laptop, pointing at it like they're working, right? Nobody's going to say, oh, that's a really cool picture. Where'd you get that? Are those your employees? No. So the key here is to create a piece of content that causes people to stop and start talking about it.
Right.
And most standard stock photos, videos, they fail to do that. Most marketing content fails to do that.
Yeah.
Instead, text only, and start off with that statement, right? There are 3 things that are sabotaging your efforts on LinkedIn. Here they are. Oh, that's going to cause, that's going to cause people to stop and say,
absolutely, yeah.
10, one of my most popular just recently was 10 dumb things I want people to stop doing on LinkedIn. Well, guess what? People started chiming in with, here's number 11, here's number 12, here's number 13, right?
Yeah.
Creating content that starts a conversation on LinkedIn is important, because LinkedIn is going to watch your content. And if you start getting comments and engagement, it will show it to more people. It's the exact opposite of what we think on Facebook or Instagram. More people see it, so I'll get more comments.
Right.
On LinkedIn, no. LinkedIn, when you put out a piece of content, only shows it to a small fraction of the individuals, about 10% of your connections, and it tests it.
Right.
And it'll test it and then see, did it start a conversation? Are people commenting? If they're not, then it won't show it beyond that 10% of your connections, and it'll just die. But if you start a conversation, LinkedIn will say, oh, this needs to be shown to more people and more people. And it'll start to show it to a wider and wider audience, because you've delivered something that's valuable. Now, I'm going to make a caveat here and a warning. There are organizations out there who have developed to exploit that feature of LinkedIn. They're called pods. And some people run businesses where you pay money to join a pod, and then when a post goes live, everybody's notified and you go comment on the stranger's post. And then the same thing happens when you make a post, they go comment on yours.
Right.
These pods are technically against the terms of service of LinkedIn. Now, I teach companies to not use an artificial pod like this, but instead to develop social squads within their organization or amongst their peers, where they're adding to the conversation, not just randomly commenting on somebody's content to artificially boost it. And so that's an important thing for your audience to think about and remember.
Yeah, it's funny. I just got approached to join a group of friends, not just some random group. There's maybe 10 of us that are saying, hey, let's try to work together to help, build our profiles and all that type of stuff. But again, to do it professionally, not just some random person. I know all these people in the group. So a little bit
that
different.
Means then when you go to comment, here's something to think about for your audience, is that when you're in that group and somebody puts out a post and you're going to go comment, your friend does not care what you have to say, honestly. That is not why they're in the group, because they really want you to say nice things about them.
I thought they valued my opinion, Richard. Yeah. What are you talking about?
Well, they might value your opinion for their audience.
Right.
But here's what happens, Paul, is most people are like, hey, I agree. Great post. Thanks for sharing. Well, that's not participating in a conversation. And we don't even really call those comments. Those are just throwaway conversation stoppers.
Well, the people that just do they're called lazy likers, right? They just hit the like. And,
I call them insta likes. right? From
Okay.
Instagram. They're just like, like. That's not adding. And LinkedIn will not reward your post if you generate a bunch of likes.
Got it.
So when your friends make their post, what you're going to do is you're going to think, what does my audience, your network, want to know that I think would be important that I should share with them out of that post?
Got it.
Now you leave a comment. For example, if you posted something, I would say, Paul, I really appreciate what you've said here, because as I've worked with my clients, I can see how this has a huge impact. Here are some of the things that I've learned and discovered. Now you're going to see my comment, but so's my network. And that's what's so different about LinkedIn.
Yeah, perfect. So how about all the tagging of folks, hashtags?
Right.
What's that all about? I mean, because I hear different opinions on those types of things. There's people you see posts, and I've done it, tag 50 people, right?
Yes.
And then I hashtag about 30. But after I've spoken to you, I don't know if you know, I've cut that way back. So I'm kind of giving the answer away, but
yeah, here's what happens. When your post goes live, you remember you got that little test group that LinkedIn's testing it.
Yep.
If you've tagged a bunch of people, well, you know what? Let's just start. If you've tagged one individual,
okay,
and that individual responds to the tag, which means they come, they look at it, they comment, like, or somehow engage with the post. LinkedIn now knows that you've included someone, changed their behavior, and brought them to the platform to engage with that content.
got it.
That means it's relevant. Let's increase the exposure, and LinkedIn will boost the post because that person you tagged came and looked at it. Now, let's suppose that person you tagged doesn't come and engage with your content. LinkedIn now sees you are, in essence, spamming someone, phishing someone, and they realize that if that person wasn't interested enough to come look at the content, then they shouldn't show it to anybody else, and they will demote the post, hiding it from a vast. Now, that was one individual. Expand that by 10, and you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Right? Because those 10 people aren't going to come. So there's a workaround on that. If you truly want those individuals to participate, then leave a comment bringing them into the conversation. Hey, Paul, I know that you have a lot to say about this topic, and I was wondering if you'd be willing to leave a comment here to let us know. And you put that down in the comments. Now, let's talk about hashtags. LinkedIn continues to experiment with hashtags. Last year, the secret number was 9. The year before that, it was 3.
When you say a secret number, what does that mean?
The number of hashtags included in the post that will receive the optimum boost from the algorithm.
Got it.
Last year, or a little while ago, it was 9. This year, it is 3 to 5 hashtags in the post.
Okay.
If you have less than 3, remember, LinkedIn's all about conversations. Those hashtags are indicating to the algorithm what conversations you're relevant in.
Yeah. 3
hashtags, less than 3, penalized. You're demoted. It'll limit how many people see it. More than 5, you've gone too far. Okay. You'll be demoted. It'll limit how many people see it.
So you've got to pick hashtags, I would think, that are relevant to the topic the content that you're posting, correct?
Yes and no. So yes, because what's going to happen is now, because you added that hashtag, your post is now going to be included in all the posts that use that hashtag in some capacity. So you can go to the hashtag, follow it, and see every single person in the world who's ever used that hashtag. But sometimes it's important that, for example, I have a hashtag called Digital First Leadership. It's based on my podcast. It's based on my book. It's based on our philosophy here at Bliss Point. Well, it's only got like 150 followers. Yeah, but if those followers get to see every single piece of my content and can go track it. So even if I'm just talking about LinkedIn or something, and I put that hashtag, I'm alerting the people who are following that, we call it a micro hashtag, that, hey, here's some content that's you will find interesting because you're following me.
Right.
You might put out a hashtag like ransomware for your security clients. All right. If you're talking about ransomware, you've now been included. But if you put out something like leadership, I think there's 3 million people following the leadership hashtag. That means you're going to get buried in there. But that's okay, because you might want to. So we recommend you have one of each: a micro hashtag that's less than 3,000 followers.
Okay.
A Goldilocks hashtag, which is 3 to 20 to 30,000 followers, which is a big range. And a macro hashtag, which is 30,000 and above. These 3 give you a little bit of personal branding with the micro.
Yep.
An audience you want to talk to with the the medium, the Goldilocks one, and then a chance to at least be present in that macro hashtag. So those three are usually a good mix. If you don't have your own personal hashtag, I recommend you start one.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, what you can do is say, hey, if you'd like to continue to follow and receive my content, you find it interesting, you put this at the bottom of your LinkedIn post. Here, follow this hashtag, and you put it in there. And now people can start paying attention. They want to follow your hashtag. If it takes about a year, I mean, that's not fast. But after about a year, you've got a couple of hundred people, then maybe 500 people, and then 1,000 people, and pretty soon people are paying attention. So it takes some time.
Yeah, interesting. This is fascinating stuff. So obviously, being in the sales role for all these years, we're always looking for different ways to do things. And I think that if you don't get with the program, you're going to be like sent out to pasture.
I have a saying. I have shared this bluntly with sales leaders. I can remember the first time I said it, I was sitting in a very small room. And when I say a small room, I could almost touch all four walls standing in the middle of the room. So it was just him and I.
Yep.
He was responsible for $4.2 billion of annual revenue. That's billion.
That's a billion.
So
yeah.
That's a
big
billion.
Number.
So he and I are sitting in this room, and I'm trying to convince him that he needs to have a stronger presence on online social media. Now, he's an old school sales guy, had risen up in the ranks, and now was a global sales leader for a big company. And he challenged me, and he was used to that, a little bit of a gruff, why do I need to? And here are the words that came out of my mouth. I said, your inability to master a 21st century communication tool calls into question your ability to lead this 21st century organization.
Right.
And I got to tell you, his eyes dilated.
He wanted to reach across the table.
Oh my gosh. I mean, he just had people didn't talk to him like that. And all the air got sucked out of the room. And I literally held my breath. I thought, what did you just do?
Yeah.
And then after a heartbeat or two, he blinked and he said, you haven't steered me wrong. What do I need to do? That's a good sales leader.
Yeah.
Who's willing to admit that they can change and grow. I said, well, the first thing is, let's see if you've got that time. It was just, let's start with Twitter. You got Twitter on your phone? Yeah. Okay. He handed me his phone. I tapped it. I said, what's the password? He's like, I don't know. Step one, let's learn the password to your social media
Let's
tools.
get into, if you're going to use an application, let's learn how to get into it first.
Let's first learn how to get into it.
Yeah.
And to his credit, he embraced that. And I've seen so many of the executives I've worked with on the sales side, once they get it, they're like, okay, what do I need to do? And these are men and women who are hungry to learn.
Yeah. And that's a great point, because you got to be willing to make changes, right? Just because you did it for the last 30 years this way doesn't mean you're going to do it in the future this way. You've got to be willing to change. And I'd like to think I'm in that category, the fact that, well, that's why I created this podcast too, right, Richard, was just to try to get something fun to do, but B, build my brand and, get active on social media. Cause a few years ago, I was like everyone else, just had a profile, never looked at it. And, but it's been a big help,
Yeah. And you're a perfect example of reinventing and saying, okay, I need to learn these tools. What do those tools involve?
Yeah.
One is, what is this podcasting thing? And what does it take for me to become involved? And you embraced that and stepped into it. And now the people you get to meet, the experiences you get to have, the windows of opportunity that are opened up, right, Paul? They're just, it's hard to minimize just how impactful that's been.
I will say this. I've met so many wonderful people because of the podcast.
Right.
When people see me, all of a sudden I'm credible, I guess. I have a podcast. I must be a somebody, even though I don't think I am. Right. But I've interviewed people in Australia, a couple from Europe, all over the country, Vancouver. I mean, I've met some wonderful people. It's been a great experience.
Yeah. And you've been doing it for a while now, a couple of years, right?
A couple of years. I've got my 2-year anniversary coming up in a couple of weeks. I think just came up with episode 50. I come on every 2 weeks. So I do 26 episodes a year. So at 52, I'll be 2 years. And so
that's a significant number. The vast majority don't even get past 10 episodes. And so
I think the statistic I heard is 80% of all podcasts don't get past episode 3.
Yeah, Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know if that's an accurate number, but
I think it's a very accurate number.
Well, because I think what people don't understand about podcasting is kind of like creating content on LinkedIn. It's hard to come out with new stuff all the time.
It is.
And I've
had sales. Here's a sales tip. You want me to give you a sales tip?
I do. I could always use a sales tip, Richard.
Here's because so often you try to engage with a prospect on LinkedIn and they're ghost. They're not present. They have a profile, but they're not posting anything.
Right.
So how do you interact with that individual? Here's what you do. You identify the company that you're looking to target. Okay. So again, I'm talking enterprise companies. So let's just pick a random one. Let's pick Disney. Okay. Disney's everywhere.
Small company.
Disney. Yeah. Small company. Let's pick Disney. And I want to talk to the CIO. And there's a lot of CIOs probably inside of Disney, right? Different divisions. All right. Do I know who that is? I could use Sales Navigator probably, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to type in Disney CIO podcast in Google. And guess what's going to pop up? A bunch of times that a Disney CIO has been on a podcast as a guest.
Right.
What am I going to do? I'm going to go listen to that episode and now write a LinkedIn post that says, was recently listening to an interesting episode of a podcast where the guest was, and I target my prospect.
Right.
She said the following, blah, 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 blah. I found this so fascinating. One of the things that's really important as I work with my clients is this, this, and this. Great episode. You should go listen to it. Well, what's going to happen? The man or woman who is the guest is going to get notified on LinkedIn that Paul has mentioned them on a post. What's the first thing they're going to ask themselves, Paul?
Who is this guy?
Who is this guy?
Yep.
And then the first thing they're going to do is go check you out, and they're going to see you talking about their content, paying attention. It's a fantastic sales tip to get in front of prospects who maybe aren't active on LinkedIn, but they are showing up in all these podcasts. They're talking about their industry. They're talking about their background. There's so much. And all you have to do, type in the company, a title, and podcast.
Nice.
And
that's a nice way. And I do some of that to try to reach out versus how many times have you connected with someone and within a millisecond, you've got a message in your message box.
So I've got a technique for that, right? Because these are people who are selling to you.
Yeah. It's like, let's get to know each other first before you start pushing something on me. Right.
Here's a couple of things for your audience to be aware of. When you receive, a couple of things. One, InMail. InMail is the ability for a premium user or Sales Navigator user to send you a message on LinkedIn without being connected to you. What a lot of people don't realize is that they have to pay for that. And there's a limit on how many they can send out every month.
Right.
So one limit is 20. They get to send out 20 of these. They get 20 credits. So they can send out 20 unsolicited messages. If you respond to that message, I'm not interested, thank you, but no thank you, please don't respond to me, they get their credit back.
Oh, God.
And they get to use it to send it to somebody else. So my advice is, and it happened this morning, when somebody sends you an InMail message, unsolicited, do not respond. It is not rude. They're being rude, not you. Delete it. And even if you want, block and identify as spam. That's what I did this morning. So that's one. Here's the second thing. If anybody goes and looks at my LinkedIn profile, they're going to see a dot in front of my name. Why? I
noticed that, by the way, on your profile.
Some people don't. Some people do because it's innocuous. It's just a dot. It's like a bullet. My team uses emojis. They're mostly millennials. They all use emojis in front of their name. I tried using an emoji. I went for chocolate ice cream. You know that pile of chocolate ice cream with the googly eyes and the smile?
Yeah. That's not chocolate ice cream, by the way.
That's what I learned. My millennial team is like, Richard, don't be putting the chocolate ice cream up there.
Yeah, there you go.
So I have the dot. Here's what happens. By the way, that's a throwaway joke. Just so
I know.
Okay. The dot allows me to know, and it's happened this morning. I can pull up my LinkedIn, and it says whenever I get a connection request, and it says something to the effect of, and I'm pulling it up right now because I have one right here. Hi, dot. Hope you're doing well. Look to connect and expand my network. That is an automatic connection bot.
Got it.
And so it'll say dot Richard, hi dot. And it's a quick way for me just to go through and delete, because these are just bots. And I would tell your audience, don't use automation tools on LinkedIn. LinkedIn does everything they can to prevent you from being successful with those tools. LinkedIn hates them. And
Yeah,
we'll
as soon
try
as
to,
I get one of those automated responses, I just immediately dismiss it.
yeah.
I don't.
And the dot allows me to quickly see which one of those are automated.
Yeah, that's a great tool. That's
Yeah. So
great.
that's one of the things I do with my dot. Don't do the chocolate ice cream.
No. So Richard, I think we've covered a wide variety of subjects relating to LinkedIn and social selling. I think it's been great. Obviously, we could go on for hours here. I think there's so many facets of this, but if someone wanted to get in touch with you, Richard, how would they do that? Because I know that you do a lot of consulting out there, a lot of big companies. So I think you know what you're doing. So if someone wanted to, how would they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I do. I do a lot of presenting to teams. I travel now with COVID lifting. I'm doing a lot of public speaking, sales kickoffs, that type of thing, getting in front of the audience. My company sponsors the largest LinkedIn algorithm research report, and I help individuals, and we didn't really get into that much, but understand how the algorithm works to allow salespeople to reach out and get their prospects to engage with them before they have to send that in mail or make that connection request. And so if they want to reach out to me, they can reach out to me on my website, blisspointconsult.com, or they can reach me on LinkedIn. That's certainly for sure. They can send me a message there. Or my email is rbliss@blisscorp.com, corp.com. I should standardize that at some point, but over the years I haven't. They can feel free to talk to me. I also have a book out on Amazon called Digital First Leadership that was written as I've worked with executives over the years, and I've been my own executive for a variety of software companies. It was sharing my insights of how to be a digital first leader in today's world. Kind of that quote that I gave you earlier. So those are the ways that they can find me and track me down and be engaged with me.
This was great, Rich. I've really enjoyed this conversation because obviously it's something I have a big interest in. And so I'm doing some good things, but I think I need improvement. That's for sure.
Well, I know I've seen the improvement just in the amount of time that we've known each other, and we've had some great conversations.
Yeah.
It's Paul, it's surprising how little steps can have such a huge impact. And I think that's what's great about your podcast is that's what you're in the business of helping people understand how to, what I call, get past those friction points. What's that next step for me to be successful? And you've got some great guests that help you do that. So very appreciative of being able to be here on the show with you.
Well, you're quite welcome, Richard. Loved having you. So I understand you're going to be in Dallas in a few weeks. Maybe we'll get a chance to have a beverage or meet for a coffee or something.
That'd be great. I think we can set that up. So I'm looking forward to it.
Sounds good. All right. Well, that's a wrap for another edition of Business Brains and the Bottom Line. Until next time.